The president is talking about, straightforwardly, another $500 billion of goods from China will be hit with tariffs if they continue their nonsense. He is the first president in the last 3 decades to take on the issue.
Again, China is all about making sure it gets its products out, but not letting our products in. And again, the espionage that they've been doing, stealing our secrets. And so we have to be tough with China.
The country's top economic planning agency said on Tuesday that the data on China's macroeconomy indicates the country's economic operation was stable and resilient in the first half of the year. The data released by the National Bureau of Statistics on Monday showed that China's GDP grew by 6.8% on the year in the first half of 2018 to about 42 trillion yuan, or nearly $6.3 trillion. China's GDP had maintained its growth rate within the range of 6.7 to 6.9% for 12 consecutive quarters.
The H1 major indicators of the microeconomy have remained steady, and the economic structure continued to optimize and upgrade, with improved quality and economic results. And the endogenous dynamics supporting our high-quality development was reinforced.
The NDRC said that the above economic progress will enable China to effectively cope with uncertainties in the world economy and realize the targets set at the beginning of the year. In the second half of the year, China will focus on overcoming economic shortcomings, properly expanding effective investment, and making vigorous efforts to advance reforms in major sectors to solidify endogenous dynamics for economic growth. China will also continue its opening up efforts to attract more overseas investment.
China has enough policy expertise to face uncertainties in the global economy. Presently, China's deficit ratio and debt ratio are at low levels, while commercial banks' capital adequacy ratio is relatively high. Enterprises' debt ratio is trending downward. There are enough spaces and policies available for China's macro control. In the second half of the year, we will seek progress in stability, enhance the flexibility and integrity of macro policies, and maintain a stable and sound macroeconomic performance.
The NDRC said industrial profit increased 16.5% on the year in the first 5 months with an improving PMI. Manufacturing investment is rebounding, and investment on environmental protection, ecosystem, and agriculture is progressing well. The NDRC also voiced their concerns about the impact of China-U.S. trade frictions on Chinese enterprises. A number of solid supporting measures from the country's top economic planner is on the way.
Of trade, tariffs, and balanced international trading systems. Your thoughts? Is the president exactly right or not?
The president's highlighting what has been a problem, and this is a problem that just did not develop over the last few months or the last few years. You go back decades with this. You go back to a decision that President Clinton made in the year 2000 to let China come into the World Trade Organization.
Right.
China is a communist country. It's a command and control economy. They can deploy resources whatever way they want to. They overbuild their industries. They flood the world. We have to understand that China is the problem, has been the problem. We're putting our own house in order here. We now have a competitive tax code internationally because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We are now taxing American businesses less than their Chinese counterparts or their Mexican counterparts, restoring a competitive and comparative advantage for the United States in the global marketplace with a great tax code. We're getting our house in order with regulations, putting a check on regulations out of Washington, D.C. that don't make sense. And now we have to target those cheaters out there in the global trading arena.
Cheaters? Would you call it cheating for China to put at least 3,500 front companies in the United States for the purpose of espionage against both our government and our businesses?
You're absolutely right. China is aggressive in this. They do cheat in the fact that they're dumping, but they also have ulterior motives out there to try to steal technology. And
they're stealing $600 billion of intellectual property from the United States each and every year. And we've got morons in the national media worried about Vladimir Putin, for crying out loud. They're looking in the wrong direction, coming up with the wrong answers.
The president understands what a threat China has been and continues to be, and the people in the administration are looking for ways to get back at China for what they've been doing to us.
Monday, China posted second quarter GDP growth of 6.7% from a year ago. Isaac, slightly lower than the first quarter of 2018. Do you attribute this to exports and possibly consumer confidence in relation to the tariffs?
Well, not yet. I don't think the full effect of the tariffs are being felt yet. There is, of course, anxiety because that will probably hurt confidence on the part of investors. And that may be hurting already, but the full effect is not being felt. The slowdown, very slight slowdown in the Chinese economy for the first half of the year can be accounted for financial restrictions, domestic restrictions of credit on the one hand, and then this potential. I say potential because we haven't seen the effect yet of the tariffs is probably going to hurt in the future.
Do you expect a bumpy ride as we watch this tariff tit for tat unfold before our eyes?
Well, definitely it's one of the risks confronting the world economy. It's not only a Chinese or US problem. The United States is now setting tariffs or threatening to set tariffs against allies, against friends, against competitors, against everybody. So this is a risk. As the IMF said this morning on the World Economic Outlook, one of the main risks to the world economy today is the threat of protectionism.
And so how is that affecting other countries and other markets?
Well, it is affecting already in the sense that investors have become very skeptical about the future of the world economy. And the IMF this morning, talking about the World Economic Outlook, already said that this lack of confidence is already hurting.
You know, the left in this country right now, look at their agenda. They are the ones colluding with Russia. They want a state-controlled economy. They want a statist government. They want a massive government. They want socialism. They want handouts. I mean, they're describing, the left of the Democratic Party is describing communism, not socialism, communism.
Indeed. Well, they're transparent about it, too. You go to the Democratic Socialists of America website, the Pittsburgh chapter here, it says they want to transition to a socialist society where the means and resources of production are democratically and socially controlled. Yeah. A socialist society controlled. Wow. That's what they're all about. And that's a recipe for paralysis, for stagnation.
It's a recipe for communism.
And not having an opportunity for people to live out their dreams and what they want to do and look to the state for everything.
Most people are aware that corporations influence policies by funneling money through political action committees. But many people don't know that companies spend nearly 3 times as much influencing American politics through charitable donations. After analyzing the tax returns of 320 foundations linked to Fortune 500 and S&P companies, researchers from several universities have concluded that the spending activities of corporate charities mimic those of PACs. According to the research, when a congressional representative obtained a seat on a committee that was important to the company, corporate foundations gave more to charities in that congressional district. When a representative left Congress, there was a decline in charitable giving in the district, and when a replacement representative gained seniority, corporate foundations began generously giving in that district again. Corporate foundations also gave more money to charities that had a politician on the board. Jesse, charities get tax breaks for the donations, so essentially, we as taxpayers are subsidizing the policies of corporate interests. Were you aware of this type of corporate influence on politics?
Absolutely. Like I've told people before, if you show a chart of corporate welfare and social people welfare, corporate welfare is way up here, People welfare's way down here. The corporations, people wake up. They're running our country. They don't give a damn about you. Corporations have no conscience. All they have is a bottom line, and that's what we have for a president right now. Somebody who has never held political office other than being a corporate leader. So that's why you got no heart and soul. That's why you've got children being separated from their parents at the border, because you got a corporate guy running America. Welcome to fascism. Now, give me a break. These people are outrageous, and the whole system is broken. So who's to blame for all this? I've been saying it now for 30 years, the Democrats and Republicans. We are not going to get our country back until we quit electing Democrats and Republicans who are handcuffed by the money provided for them and the benefits through corporate fascism.
I see. So, you know, China and the EU actually were meeting. They were talking about a trade deal. They were looking at the China relationship actually with the U.S. and how that is playing into that. How do these two different ongoing disputes play into China's overall economy?
Well, I think this search for alternatives is what is going to happen as a result of the protectionism that is going to be imposed. Now, alternative sources of the products that are going to be submitted to tariffs have to be found. And let me give you an example. For instance, soybeans, which is one of the main imports from China gets from the United States. If there is a tariff against U.S. imports, what China is going to do is to try to find the soybean somewhere else. And Argentina and Brazil are one of the main producers in the world. They are ready to supply the Chinese market.
So how's the country going to find the stability it needs moving forward? Because as this goes on, I imagine that it will continue to affect confidence.
Yes, well, the Chinese economy was already sliding slowly because of a change in orientation of the Chinese economy from the external market to the domestic market. And the IMF projects that next year, the Chinese economy will grow a bit less, precisely as a result of this reorientation of the economy towards the domestic market. Now, this will complicate much more any kind of policy.
So the yuan against the dollar, is this a headwind to the growth story, do you feel like?
Well, the dollar has appreciated in the first half of this year about 5%, and that's, of course, being felt by the rest of the world. Now, that will hurt U.S. exports, by the way, because U.S. exports are becoming more expensive. So there is a contradiction, in a way, in this fact that the United States would like to solve this issue of the trade deficit, and at the same time, the dollar is strengthening, which is contradictory in a way.
How big of a factor are exports in the GDP?
In the United States, not that important. Let's say 15% of the economy would be exports, but they provide jobs for many people and high-paying jobs, and they serve to attract a lot of investment. So the consequences are pernicious to everybody, unfortunately. This kind of trade war hurts